special way of bringing in the festive season, shall we say. It's been a long time coming, and we're really excited to have the guys from 36dB on today, and they are obviously better known as Jamieson and Dave Gardner, who obviously, you know, very well known for many famous things, including obviously working with Sasha amongst many other things. And this is a brand new venture with them, and this is something that we're really excited to share with everyone, the community at MYT, the larger production community who's watching us on YouTube right now. Welcome, and yes, away we go. So without much further ado, I'm going to hop over onto Zoom. I'm going to bring Dave and Barry in, and then we're going to have a little bit of a talk about how 36dB came to fruition, the concept behind it, the idea behind it, and then I've actually got some of the Ableton environments that they are selling over on their website, and then we'll be able to go through them in a lot of depth, because this is quite a different, very innovative, quite original way of sharing content. You know, we're very used to things like just being able to be, you know, downloading things like MIDI files or instrument presets or sample packs entirely separately, or even Ableton template sessions. This does an amazing job of bringing everything together in a really integrated and quite inspiring way. So, as I say, without much further ado, I am going to bring in Mr. Barry Jamieson and Mr. Dave Gardner. How are you, gents? Hope you're both well. Just going to ask both of you to unmute there so we can actually have a proper conversation. How's it going?
All right.
Not too bad,
All right, mate. How are you?
Very well. Well, I say very well. Like I was just saying, I'm just getting over a stinking flu that I had for the last week or so. So,
Leggy.
yeah, oh, mate, like full on. But, you know, that's what I get for, you know, living that lifestyle and being on planes all the time for the last 2.5 months. So I don't want to sound like, you know, hashtag DJs complaining or anything. But, you know, these things tend to happen. How are you boys getting on? You all right?
All good, yeah. Just winding down for Christmas, really.
Yeah, I'm glad I caught you before you was you're going to disappear.
Same here. Yeah, finally
I think
after
as of Wednesday,
my folks since pre-COVID, so that's all been a little bit nuts.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, good to be home.
Good stuff, buddy. How about you, Dave?
As of Wednesday, Xmas break, really. Got a few things to do over Christmas, but we've got a launch coming up pretty soon, so we're just getting ready for that, and then that's it, really. Going to take some time off.
Well earned and well deserved, I'd say, for all three of us, to be honest. It's been a hell of a year this year with everything going on, and everything getting back to supposedly normal after the 2 years previous, which we obviously don't need to talk about. But
no, I mean, it was hard, right? But I feel like we're getting through it. I think I mean, and I think good things will come from it, you know. So.
Yeah, 100%. And it sounds like 36dB is one of those things that's been positive to kind of come through this. So, you know, obviously when I heard you guys were doing something like this, I was really keen to kind of like, you know, get involved and stuff. And, you know, recently you guys reached out and, you know, it was a great initial conversation. So, you know, where did the idea for this come from? Because if I've got to say it, I know you guys pretty well, obviously, you know, for those who are watching who kind of know the history, like, you know, the three of us have worked together.
Been in the trenches together.
Front lines, you know, tin hat,
well
passport, well and truly, you know what I mean? Went through it together on Scene Delete. So, you know, when I thought you guys were busy enough as it was with, like, you know, working with Sasha and everything, and then you come up with this entirely new concept. So, you know, run us through 36dB and how it's come about.
Well, shall I start, Baz?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it basically came about during the first lockdown, really, where, you know, everybody was looking for stuff to do, and we were just thinking, well, because at that point nobody really knew what the hell was going on, really, did they? It was like, okay, we need to find. Obviously, gigs are drying up. You know, just nothing was going on. So we just thought, what could we do initially that would be something? for want of a better phrase, a side hustle kind of thing. And we realized that we had this incredible library of sounds and just things that, you know what it's like, Paul, when we were working together, we would do 20 versions of one track. So you're left with all this content, right? And some of it doesn't get used. And we just thought, what's a great way that we could utilize that and share it with people in a different way. And initially we were thinking that we'll just, we'll sell it on Bandcamp or something like that, something very kind of, quite simple. And then as we started developing the idea and what we thought we could give to people, and that would be the best value for them and that they could learn from, really, it very quickly snowballed into what you see now, really. It took us a while to kind of develop the format and everything and get that right. But it took us a while, but we think we got there in the end.
Yeah, I think a lot of it as well was to do with, Ableton itself. It's been such an important platform for us since probably 2002, 2003, when Gaetan Schura first introduced it to Sasha. And, when we realized the capabilities of what it could do as a DAW that nobody else was doing at the time, everyone just thought it was this DJ tool. You couldn't make records in it or tracks. And it was like, no, there's a lot more to it than that, And when we started doing the first Involver album, we could have never have made any of the Involver albums without Ableton. None of the other DAWs do that could do. And then, it became an instant fix for us because we big Pro Tools rigs, all the rest of it. And then, when you've got 4 or 5 people working on an album, like, yourself, Paul, when we're doing Scene Delete, there's multiple setups in different locations with all this content flying around, and we all have to be on the same page. And Ableton was the best way for us to do that, and for translating each other's ideas and, dragging tracks in from someone else's session, just everything about it as a cohesive working tool. It was way beyond any other DAW at that time, it was brilliant. So the thing we wanted to do with the environments was totally keep it Ableton. There's no third party things you need to buy or purchase, which is what a lot of other kind of competition to us was doing, and the good products, the really great products, but you need Ableton, you need Diva, you need, just lots of other stuff. And we wanted to make it because, the little things that are within Ableton, they're really, really powerful when you get under the hood, and I mean, analog, I love analog. It's one of my favorite tools to use. And Sasha got me to do is, can you make this sound? And I'll kind of go away and figure out what's going to be the best box we can do it with, like we did for the live shows, but doing it within Ableton. And he'd be like, you did that with analog? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, shit, So we suddenly realized we're building up this huge library of assets and other things we've done previously as well. And going, do you reckon we can do that with Operator? I'm like, yeah, we can have a go. And then we'll try and recreate some of the stuff on some of our hardware as well, but also sampling and bringing things in. But it's all within that Ableton framework. And now with Live 11, which we're about to do updates for all of our environments on, we're utilizing all the other assets that come with Ableton 11, which of course is 16 macros. So there's much more hands-on control within the sounds themselves. And you've got snapshots, which is mind-blowing, So it was just developing something that you can drag and drop and utilize that kind of modular aspect of Ableton to build within other environments that we provide or your own projects. Same way we were working on Scene Delete, where we'll grab other people's ideas and just keep adding to this session, and that was the concept behind it.
It was also something as well that this was a big part of it. It was kind of when we kind of realized that we were going to do this, we wanted to concentrate on how can people get their ideas up and running and sounding great as quickly as possible, so they don't get bogged down in trying to do everything themselves, like the mix or what compressor are they using. Whereas you don't. I mean, we've said this multiple times, but you really don't need much more than what you get in Ableton to make a track, right? You don't need to buy all these expensive plugins and everything. Yeah, they're great and they do add something, but a big part of what we wanted to get out to people was that if you've got Ableton and you've got a good idea and you invest in our products, you're going to be able to make the most out of your idea very quickly and without kind of getting lost in it, really.
Yeah. Well, I think another way of looking at it, like you know yourself, Paul, there's a couple of hats you have to wear as an artist, as a content creator, as a sound designer, as an engineer, as a producer, and a lot of these kids that are starting to come up now, they're definitely learning that, and they may never have stepped foot in a studio before and understand the surroundings of all this equipment and this hardware, but they're learning pretty quick what your limitations and your capabilities are within a program like Ableton. So, the one thing about the environments is every track, all the sounds are very, very tailor-made. The effects for the sounds are built within them, the EQ, what it would fit within a track, so to speak. So when you start dragging all of this stuff in, a lot of the engineer and the producer aspect of what you do to make a track, it's already done for you. It's already, how much compression should they have on this? What frequencies are a little bit out of place and need a bit of nipping and tucking. That's all done with every single part that you add. So if you just deleted all of the MIDI information and come up with a completely brand new melody and idea without having to touch anything else, it's already going to be kind of 90% mixed than that, because it was already done within that environment, so to speak.
And you can change it all as well. It's all,
of course, yeah.
So if you're not happy, if you like the sound and you go, okay, well, I want to tweak the EQ on that, or I want to change, the ADSR or whatever it is, it's completely modular. So you can go get really in there and sculpt it to your needs, basically, because it's, it's the classic thing of, sample CDs are, you're basically rearranging somebody else's creativity, right? And whereas this is the complete opposite. It's, we've given you it's like a box of Lego.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can
it's kind of already assembled, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And what I love about it, I haven't had to play around with some of the environments, and we're going to look at them in a bit. What I loved about it was like exactly what you're saying, Baz, about the fact that it is all confined in a very, it's interesting, isn't it? Because like we know as pros that sometimes it's the restriction that liberates you, right? And it's the fact that you've got mastery over a limited tool set, which means you can basically do whatever you want. And that was one of the things that really stood out, and it aligns so much with advice that I give to MYT members, to people I've taught for 14 years, which is don't worry about Diva, don't worry about Serum, don't worry about any of that stuff. Like, master what you have got in the box first of all, and then later on, don't be one of those people that's got all the gear and no idea. Like, you can then start to make more, informed and inspired decisions about what third-party tools you need to augment what you've already got. But everything is completely, as you say, like within this Ableton domain, which means it's available to everyone right from the beginning, which I absolutely love. And to Dave's point about the fact that it is completely like Lego sort of modular, it really, really is, where, God, the amount of sample packs I've downloaded over the years, and I was like, God, I'd love to be able to like actually get the preset of that sound or the effects chain or whatever. You've actually got access to that. You can pull any individual sound absolutely to pieces and then be able to pick what requisite sound. Like I've already heard on the Progressive House one, there was like a delay on something. I was like, I mean, the sound's not for me, but I want that delay.
Yeah.
And I can take that and then integrate it into my own workflow, basically.
I mean, you've nailed it there, Paul, because that is exactly it. It's that, you might like the sound from one environment and the delay from another thing, or you might just want the delay on your sound that's in your production already, and you just go, shit, I'm having that. The way we kind of, the file structure has all been designed as well.
Yeah, the presets, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, you can just drag it. It's all there. So if you just want the delay is there on its own. Or if you want to take most of the chain and just swap the instrument out, you can do that. It's completely and utterly modular. So,
I mean, another thing to add to that as well is, the one limitation with Ableton, every project you've got, you can drag stuff in from any other project, but you can't with the returns, which is why we did the return effect separately. So you can still say, oh, I love that return that we had on that track. We give you it as a preset. So you just drag and drop it on another return in your other track, and it's there.
Or not a return, or you put it on a channel. You can put anything can go anywhere basically.
Yeah. It's funny. It was funny actually seeing this as almost like the logical conclusion of how we all worked together.
Yeah.
Which, believe it or not, was 7 years ago.
I know.
Like, I don't actually wear those.
Don't make us feel old, Paul.
mate. It's one of the. It makes me feel old, and I was supposed to be the baby of the setup. Do you know what I mean? And it's
I think you aged about 10 years during that, Paul.
The first Involver album's nearly 20 years old.
Oh my god!
Just get your head around that.
I don't mind that, to be honest. It means that we're still doing it, right? It means that we must be doing something.
Yeah,
right?
there's still a career.
Or they haven't found anybody else stupid enough to take over.
That could be it as well.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. But it's like, because obviously after we did, I remember the whole thing that like part of that work resulted in the Native Instruments. Library as well that came out last year.
Developed from that. I mean, we were trying to do that at the same time, weren't we? The live shows as well.
Because a lot of the racks that like the three of us built in that time period just after the See and Delete album were absolutely lethal in terms of the capability and what they could do, and the idea of being able to, like, I always called it parachuting something in, where it's like, you might have an idea for a riff, but you just need a good drum groove that you can just parachute in, and it's like you hit play and it's like, Jesus, that almost sounds like a finished record, like right from the get-go. Do you know what I mean? All the donkey work's done for you.
Yeah, but that's it, isn't it? The temptation is always to start from scratch, right? So if you build up a kind of arsenal of weapons that like if you've got like a bunch of racks, like just pop them, get going. It's that kind of thing where we've learned that process really from having to work to deadlines, and also because of the way that we work, and because we do so versions things, where even when we were doing Scene Elite, the amount of those folders, there was like hundreds of versions of things in some of those folders, right?
I think I counted 57 versions of Rooms, in the end.
Yeah. I mean, that was particularly difficult to get finished, wasn't it? And I think we went back to one that we did very early, actually.
Yeah, I think we went back about 20 versions. Didn't we, by the time we finished?
But the thing is that the process was there, right? Yeah. So this thing that is incorporated into the way that these environments work was very much in there. It's very much in there. So it's kind of, I mean, I'm sure in another 20 years we'll change it slightly again, but at the moment it works. The great thing about these as well is that if you have one of these things and you tweak it and then you just save it out and you've got another version of the same thing, whereas you're, instead of having to go to multiple folders or update a bit of software because it's the latest version, or all of that kind of stuff just goes right out the window, and your workflow just speeds up and you end up becoming way more productive once you get that workflow side of things sorted out.
100%.
Yeah, it's funny as well because as we've been building the content as well, it's fun because you just go to the library and you go to the search field and you just put 36 dB in, and just this list of stuff comes up, and it's good, and it's really good starting points to go from. And slowly, as you start to build this, what it will eventually be, it's a shitload of content. It really is a lot of content. And the mad thing is that all stuff can kind of integrate as well. And we've been just on a video recently that we're about to do for part of our ad campaigns with social media. And we basically turned the down-tempo electronica one into 133 BPM techno track, and it's absolutely slamming.
Yeah.
And we're grabbing a few bits from a few other projects, but showing within the space of 5 or 10 minutes, we've completely turned it inside out, and it sounds finished. And we didn't touch any of the mixing. We didn't change any of the effects. We just changed the tempo, dropped a couple of things in, I mean, oh, that's all right. That works.
I mean, we did a bit more than that. It wasn't
all
quite
right,
that simple, but
it wasn't a complete Blue Peter, though, was it? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, where's what we made earlier?
No, but
we're not going to have a
right.
domestic here, are we, on the live stream?
No.
Yeah.
No, we got all of that out the way, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But Baz is not far off. You know, that is how simple it is. You know, you can, you know, because it's all. You're not really restricted by audio or anything like that. You know, as much as I love working in audio, you know, when you're writing and coming up with ideas, you know, sometimes it's better to work in MIDI.
MIDI's king, isn't it, really?
Or, you know, or not, whatever. The point is that you can, you know, you can turn these things on their head very quickly. And
I mean, other parts of it as well, when you'll get into it, you'll notice, I mean, we do quite a lot of Max for Live bits and bobs as well, and we're starting to develop some of our own kind of plugins that we've created within it. And you know, it's that kind of modular aspect of Ableton where, you know, you might be using analog, say, and analog's got 2 VCOs and 2 LFOs. So what? You can just go and drag another LFO from Max for Live and assign that somewhere else. You could have 10 LFOs on that synth, which completely changes its architecture instantly. And we do a lot of that with effects as well, where there might be parameters in the effects that you can't modulate with the LFO that says, like in Echo. So you just add another one and attach it to that. So all of a sudden, Echo's got all these extra bits that it wasn't designed with. So they can all go way beyond what they actually come with. You know what I mean? And once you start thinking that way, you know, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is, and it's funny because you'd look to like other DAWs like that in the past, because again, I remember sort of 7 or so years ago when we were working on See and Delete, you know, you were talking in very similar terms about the likes of, you know, Bitwig Studio or like, you know, FL Studio, like Fruity Loop, stuff like that. And, you know, oftentimes we'd be bouncing out to, you know, other bits of kit or, you know, whatever. And now it's all available in-house. And, you know, with the power of like, you know, the new processors, like, I mean, especially because, I mean, I'm talking to you right now on an Apple Silicon machine. And this thing...
Oh, we haven't gone there yet. That's the next step.
Oh my God, go there. Like, it is insane just how much you can get out of these machines now.
I just, I had to... We're about to start a new project with Sasha and him. He bought a new machine that I helped him set up, and he got the kind of the...
Again.
The top end laptop. And we basically, because he had some problems with his record box, we just had to process something like 70,000 songs basically. And you know how long that normally takes in like in an Intel Mac. On his new laptop, we just dropped it in and analyzed it, and it just literally went across the thing, and I was like, I just could not believe what I was seeing.
Yeah,
it is incredible.
It's mental. It's absolutely, it really is. Like, I mean, literally, I did a show.
A lot of third providers as well.
You what, Barry? Sorry.
Yeah, I said I think a lot of third-party providers, you know, that stuff's becoming native now. You know, a little bit more. It was a bit thin on the ground, wasn't it? About a year ago.
For one or two of the big ones like Native Instruments. We're still waiting for.
No, listen, let's not go there. You know.
Don't get started about Native Instruments.
Yeah, I mean, they're interfaces. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm a massive Absinthe fan.
Yeah.
And the fact that they just let it go, and the guy who designed it and developed it was quite happy to redevelop it, and they didn't even let him know. They just dropped it. You know.
Wow.
And you look at some of their other interfaces. I mean, how long have we been on 4K monitors now?
Mm-hmm.
We've been on 4K monitors for years, and yet their interfaces look shit. You know. So they've got a lot to sort out over there.
Very much so. Very much so.
But I'm a fan. I've always been a fan. I'm just
they seem to be busier buying companies than improving the bits that they already do.
Yeah,
which is a bit of a weird one.
Who have they bought?
No, they've gone in with like
Isotope
and Brainworks, Plugin Alliance. You know, it's that whole sound wide thing that they're all now working together under one umbrella. So it's going to be very interesting to see, like, you know, what kind of effect that has on the industry overall. I mean, you look at someone like Isotope and Plugin Alliance, at least, I mean, all of their products
are all up to date, all working with all the latest stuff. So hopefully it'll drag native instruments into the 21st century, and they start,
absolutely. Well, we've
doing
been
their
big
bit.
partners
Sorry,
with.
Dave.
No, we've been big partners with Plugin Alliance, like, because I've done quite a lot of sound design
Yeah, I know
work
you
for
have,
them in the past and stuff. So they're a fantastic company, phenomenal company.
Oh, yeah.
Well worth picking up their Brainworks Neve console. Mainly because it sounds amazing, but they were part of those big floods last year, in Germany. So
I remember.
Dirk Ulrich's Neve, that was the only one in existence, went in that flood. So the only like preservation of the sound of that desk is their plugin, like, because that desk no longer exists, like, because it got flooded.
Was it a V90? Was it?
I think so. Yeah.
Something like that. But it was a massive one, wasn't it? A really big one.
Yeah, it was massive. Yeah, it was massive. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like, again, getting back into like the modularity of everything, and again, not needing those third-party tools, shall we take a look at one of the environments and we can kind of start to see what we're going for? What we'll do is, as well, we've got quite a few people asking questions in the comments as well, so we'll maybe do 5 or 10 minutes at the end to go through that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to just bring everything up. Here we go. So actually what people heard at the beginning was the organic house environment, which is actually really, really nice sounding. And, like you said before, when you look at the intros to these environments, you get a lovely guide in terms of like, how to install everything. And, the guideline on this is like, if you're into like the likes of Lost Desert or Lee Burridge or, one of your monikers, Barry Mono Electric Orchestra, it's that kind of sound, right? Yeah. So obviously we're looking at things initially in the arrangement view. So if I just sort of zoom everything out here, you can see, like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, like, an insane amount of layering just through, one element, essentially, just for one kind of environment and one kind of track. We open a couple of things here. There's some vocal loops and stuff like that as well. There's quite a few different, returns, like we were saying before as well. But just the depth of, what's available here is quite interesting. And, the first thing that kind of really stood out to me was the fact that you've got an overall, if I go up here, we've got an overall drum rack of like the whole kit, but then you've still got a group here with all the individual sounds as well.
But that, that came from, well, Paul, from when we were working, we had a tendency to split the drums out, and so we could kind of process them all differently, and then group them together. Whereas some people prefer working with it as pattern based, right? So it's weirdly, since we started doing this, I prefer working in the pattern based version of the drums, but I just think it's a bit easier. But I mean, it's horses for courses, right? So
no, absolutely. And I think
I'm a little bit torn. It's weird with me. Because, I mean, when I'm doing my own productions, I've been a big fan of Native Instruments Machine since it first came out. We kind of helped out at the beginning of it, kind of testing things out before they launched it, And I come from that MPC kind of thing anyway. So even though I do actually work within tracks like this in my own sessions, I usually end up starting it by creating it on Machine, and then I'll basically put it into Ableton and then do it as tracks within Ableton later. But it's just because of programming on the pads as a first idea, and plus I have push as well. So when you use the patterns, you just get it up and away you go, and it's just the same concept, So
it's that ability to jam it in first and foremost, isn't it? To get like the actual groove and, seeing the sounds sort of laid out next to each other. It makes sample selection a little bit easier and stuff, and you can kind of get things in tune and whatever. But as I say, like, you say quite rightly, one of my pet hates, even though I love the drum rack so much and I've loved it and used it for years, is like, you can't get that separate output of it, if you know what I mean, especially when it comes to things like if you've gotten all the way to the end of a production and then you've got to run stems and all of a sudden it's like, shit, I'm going to have to make 16 copies of my drum rack here. and then
Yeah,
solo
exactly,
each
yeah.
individual one. It's like, you know, it's a limitation of the DAW, obviously, but, you know, again, just having that layout so you can kind of just pick and choose which bit you want is incredibly clever.
Well, the other thing is as well, Paul, as you know, it's the same thing from the browser. You might prefer a kick from one of the other tracks, and you can just go and drag in just that kick track, you know, and change it that way and stuff like that. So it's all about this mix and match kind of concept behind it. So you've got each layer of the whole environment, really.
Yeah, exactly. And I take it by and large, like the main sounds on each one of these racks, regardless of what kind of environment you're working in. Like, say, for example, the kick's always going to be on that first C1 pad and
exactly,
that kind of thing. So you can actually swap entire racks and clips out and chop and change that way, and then the whole thing's not going to, you know, again, because sometimes you do that and it sounds like the Grand National, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? It sounds like somebody fell over a drum kit. And then sometimes it sounds amazing, do you know what I mean?
No, the way we've done it is the same thing. You know, what drum sound is going to be on that pad. So if you put a different pattern from another environment in, it will sound like that pattern, so to speak, with different drum sounds, you know?
Yeah, amazing. Again, that's another call back to like how we were working, like putting those racks together for, you know, the back end of the Sasha stuff, because it was just really, really powerful, like being able to just go from, right, well, that's that kit from that track, and then let's move it into this one from this completely different track, and it was, oh, that's what that groove sounded like with the different tracks drums on and stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
opens up massive amounts of creative possibilities.
Yeah, really quickly.
Yeah, really, really nice. Like, and again, you know, as this environment really brought out like the really sort of, shall we say, slightly militant audio engineering lecturer in me, because everything was really correctly named and coloured and stuff like that as well. Like that.
You mean organised?
Yeah. It brought me back to, like, you know, my days being a university lecturer and like marking people down because they didn't name anything or colour code anything correctly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we've definitely been a bit anal retentive when it comes to stuff like that, because I hate getting sessions and there's like 90 tracks and it's like, well, what's this bit? Oh yeah, that's not supposed to be in there.
It's like a bombs it, basically. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I know exactly where you're going with that, mate, for sure.
We wanted to keep the simplicity of it, you know. Yeah, we wanted to keep the simplicity of it, so everyone looks exactly the same color codes, same layout. The tracks are roughly in the same order, so, you know, every time you open one, it's like if you're looking at the one you've just been in, even though it's a completely different environment. So it's keeping that theme and familiarity with it, so you can get around really, really quickly.
Yeah,
you know, it was kind of what.
It's important to mention as well, though, that one of the easiest ways to up your productivity is to keep your sessions organized.
Yeah.
If you know what you're looking at just by the color, or, you know, if you're not looking at the channels, if you know that your drums are a certain color, when you're looking at the bigger picture, you're like, oh, okay, it's something that people overlook, but it's such a good way to get your workflow, or just increase your workflow, basically, because keeping shit organized, you know, just having those mental notes that you know that. Well, I mean, part of this is because I don't suffer from synesthesia, but I have synesthesia where certain sounds trigger certain colors in my head. So a lot of these colors are based around what I hear or see in my head. But if I know that, if I need to edit the bass, it's there. It's blue. I'm not looking where it is in the list. It's just, it's very helpful, that is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And you know, for me, working across multiple DAWs as well, because you know, my three main ones, like I integrated Cubase in a couple of years ago because I'm still doing bits of film work here and there and whatever. And, you know, I always like to have a different DAW sometimes because I just feel like if I get a bit stagnant and get a little bit kind of like, as everybody, even us lot, we get stuck in a groove, don't we? We get a bit stuck in a rut, and you autopilot to the same sounds all the time, and it's kind of like a muscle memory thing, and then everything starts to sound the same. I always found like jolting myself out of that into a different DAW always kind of worked. So, when I get a bit of fatigue that way, I'll jump into Logic or I'll jump into Cubase. And, I'm still one of those guys that will, make a track in Ableton, but then I'll mix it down as a separate process in Logic.
Right.
But what I tend to do is I've got a color coding system, like an internal one,
Yeah.
that not only sees me between sessions within Ableton, it goes across DAWs.
Yeah. It's a great way to work, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I even I caught myself a few months ago, like recording gongs in the studio in the back end of Wales, and was like using the same color coding system in a Pro Tools system
mate,
for a completely different project. Like,
if it works, why would you change it? Right.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also good to note because, a lot of people who are developing their skills, they don't think about these small things, and they end up becoming quite significant obstacles to their own creative process.
Well, mate, cards on the table. I mean, it wasn't until we started doing, like, when you start getting you start working with other people, and you have to take into consideration how, you're handing a session over to somebody else. Then you get into this kind of housekeeping, don't you? And then, I mean, I can remember handing sessions over to people where they just weren't in this state. They were just the colors, right? Because I knew the colors. Whereas, if everything's labeled, even if you have a variation in the MIDI, quite often what we do is, like, you'll see a piece of MIDI that's got, it might be orange, and then it's a lighter shade of orange. It's to let you know that MIDI is changed in that, on that particular section.
It's still the same tone color wise. It's just a different kind of shade of it, basically.
Yeah. And the more you get into that, it's so helpful.
No, massively. And again, just looking at the actual device itself, even just on going back to the drum rack for a second. I mean, obviously you can see now, you've got the 8 macros there, as Barry mentioned before. With the Live 11 update, you can have up to 16 of them. That's incredibly powerful if you've got something like a push in front of you, which again, like, I struggle to use Ableton without a push nowadays. And it's a really,
me too now.
Massive, amazing piece of kit. And when you go off from there, it's like having this within the drum rack itself would be enough. But then we get into the myriad of other processing, where we've got, a multi-band compression going on. We've got some overall EQ, there's saturation, there's a glue compressor, a little bit of reverb that can be added as well. And also as well some filtering with an EQ3. So it goes well beyond what you would do just sort of dragging and dropping a load of stuff just onto a drum rack, essentially.
Yeah, I mean...
and you'll notice as well, Paul, that same kind of drum channel strip is actually on the group channel for all the individual tracks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, even going into that individual kick there, there's... Obviously, you've got EQs there. You've got an absolute massive amount of processing going on. Very, very, just so comprehensive in terms of what it can do. So it's very, very cool indeed. So
and a lot of these sounds as well have been processed as well, Paul. A lot of the drum sounds when we've been recording them and everything, they've been going through some outboard gear and other kind of bits of trickery and stuff, doing sound design. When the sounds were being created. So.
No, absolutely. Like, let's have a little listen to just the drums on their own.
Oh, it says it's not streaming now, Paul. There you go. Got it.
Yeah, got it. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great sound. And, again, like you say, I mean, you're a better engineer than I am if you can find out what to do with that in terms of like trying to make that sound any more polished or any more finished.
Yeah, I mean, Baz, one of the great things about working with Baz on this is that he knows his onions when it comes to kind of mixing, right? So we spend a lot when we develop each one, we spend a lot of time making sure that they sound close or in line with, the type of music that we're trying to emulate, basically. So if you want to make an organic house track, this is a great way to start your session off, because even if you change the drum pattern, or the MIDI, or even if you put your own sounds into that rack, your own hi-hats or something, it's still going to sound good. it's just very solid, right?
It's been polished, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
each section and part of it as well. So cohesively,
You know what it's like as well?
it really works as a mix. You know,
The temptation is quite often to ramp the kick up and all the rest of it. Whereas, if you get the balance of everything pretty solid, as this is, everything's in its right place. So the kick drum's got the right weight on it, the snare's got the right attack on it, and the right air on it, and it sits nicely. And then once you've got that in place, putting stuff on top of it becomes a lot easier, right? Because you're not going, is it fighting with the groove? Is that it's it's a great way to start off.
Yeah, it really is, and you add in your own content into an already deeply polished environment, which can only add benefit across the board, really. And then it's about making the tweaks to optimize those sounds that you've added from outside to that environment.
Yeah.
On
this environment as well, Paul, if you look at the mallet group, the mallet group has got, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's really 8 layers in there.
Away. This is what really blew me away on this. It was really impressive. Really impressive.
And the thing is, they're all part of the core library that you get with Ableton, Ableton Live Suite. So, they're all sounds that are buried in there that people might combination that really work as almost like a little ensemble. And then if you look as well, there's like a little Max for Live little plugin in there. That's a humanizer, which is part of one of the core packs as well. And that adds a little bit of drift on the notes to make it feel a little bit more like a real group of people doing it. And it all adds to the realistic kind of vibe of that whole combination of sounds. So
absolutely. And the layering and how you guys have got the texture on this is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, if I just play this on its own, I mean, it just sounds like something that
it's kind of like a bit of a combination of scene delete, doesn't it? A little bit.
Well, a little bit, yeah. But I feel like a bit of Nils Fromm concert or something. Do you know what I mean? But again, to break it into its individual sort of parts, it's just as I say, the layering and the tuning in particular is so well done. And tonal, the tonal stuff where you can clearly hear the more sort of deeper orange stuff is slightly sort of lower toned, slightly darker. The more lighter orange stuff is more sort of brighter, and it's a bit more main, if you know what I mean. It just sounds great.
Well, the devil is in the detail, right?
Oh yeah.
And the thing is that the simplicity about it as well is they're all very, very simple MIDI melodies, but once you start layering them up and you get them there, it's quite a complex group of melodies. But it's really cool for people who've not kind of done this before to realize it's not that complex.
Yeah.
It's about just offsetting patterns and slightly different, inverting the way the melodies are, and all of a sudden you get something that's really cool and really beautiful.
Yeah, the subtlety of the difference of each individual layer then contributes to the whole, right? And how that works. And, getting down to about the 5th layer, it's we're not even in a sample-based thing now. We've got this wood marimba sort of operator kind of sound going, which actually works really nicely, and you can hear it cutting through. And once you've heard that layer, you can't unhear it.
Yeah.
You know that it's there, and you know that it contributes.
Yeah.
If I take that out, it's and on its own,
and it doesn't sound like a synth. It sounds like it's real with all the other stuff as well, doesn't it? But it's not. It's completely synthetic, even though some of the other things are actually samples. So,
and also,
we did that with Scene Delete, didn't we, Dave? Well, I think there was a bunch of operator and DX7 kind of sounds and things, which were things that we were using back in that time as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean I mean, how many of those Sonicature libraries did we get our hands on?
Oh my God.
It was crazy, wasn't it? And that was kind of when we were putting this particular environment together. We were thinking, okay, well, obviously, one of our mantras is that you don't really need. We wanted to keep everything inside Ableton, but the Ableton libraries are great, and Operator is such a versatile synth for kind of getting these kind of sounds. Anyway, It's yeah. This is, I mean, sonically, this is one of the best ones. I think it's so. I mean, you could pull any element out of that and make it.
It's quite hi-fi, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
as far as the quality and the sound of it. You know,
Yeah.
compared to some of the others, which are definitely going for a bit more of a textured, pushed, kind of driven appeal, where this is much more pleasant Sunday afternoon kind of vibes.
All day I dream, don't you, Barry? Don't you know?
Yeah, so yes.
Oh yes, oh yes. Sundays with Burridge and all of that. But yeah, I mean, and beautiful stuff like this as well, like the stack falls as well, which I'll just play. Which is just, again, like that's something that, you know, you can play around with, you can completely change the tone of it. You know, and then like just looking at the MIDI patterns as well, the ability for you know, as a MIDI pattern to be able to get into that and be able to, you know, refine it note by note, even maybe completely change the scale of it, you know, the whole 9 yards. Basically.
Well, here's the things, Paul. You know, some of the best parts about Live 11 now, you know, you can take that MIDI and use the little MIDI tool things. You can invert it, you can reverse it, you can get a completely different suggested pattern with just a couple of clicks. You know, so you can really turn things inside out without actually really needing to play any other MIDI notes, you know, so it can make it all much more flexible than previous versions of Ableton.
I mean, I said Ableton, when it first came out, Ableton 11 was worth the upgrade alone just for the ability to fold the piano roll into a particular scale. Like, that's all I wanted. That was like, that's great. That's great. It's always like, when those new versions come out, it's always like, look at this brand new synth, everyone. And I'm like, but you've got a keyboard command for this. I've been waiting for 5 years.
Well, we've got some exciting things happening. The first one's going to be hopefully launched between Christmas and New Year, but we're doing another section of the site which will be announcing shortly. And there's a lot of MIDI tools and things that we created that are great for giving you really good.
Always frozen.
right on cue, right?
Perfect visual representation of Barry there as well.
Yeah,
just as he was making the big announcements as well.
Yeah,
so, he's the powers that be decided to shut him up. But yeah, I think he's frozen for a second.
But I'll finish what he was going to say.
Yeah, go on.
But basically, there's lots of kind of we're going to launch a new part of the site, which is basically you froze them, Baz. So we can't hear you. You're muted.
That's my
carry on.
That's my automatic Zoom setting. Sorry, guys.
We're going to have a new product range, which is basically they're going to be things that can help you with your MIDI or processing or you know, like Baz mentioned, the first one is going to be hopefully launching between Christmas and New Year, and then with the others to follow in the new year. It's really exciting stuff, especially if you're making, you know what it's like, you know, that with Ableton, the more you can kind of, because you can make mad stuff happen so easily. We've kind of designed all these things that you can put on your sequencer, or that will spit crazy MIDI out, or, you know, coming up with crazy sequences or arpeggios, or very chords. There's one that is really very, very powerful stuff. Very powerful stuff.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Sounds absolutely fantastic. It really does, and much needed as well. To be honest with you, like I think there's a very, you know, very specific gap in the market for this type of stuff. Because again, like you know, I'm looking at this also from just a pure educational perspective. You know, this is how it's done.
Yeah.
You know, it really, really is. And, you know, it shows off, you know, like, again, going back to the marimbas and stuff like that, like, you know, that layering aspect, you know, is incredible. I mean, I even felt like I learned something from this morning, you know, just playing around with these marimba layers, because, like, you know, it was a real reminder to kind of, like, take things really, simply, because like I still have this capacity, as both of you well know, to just throw the kitchen sink at stuff, and then I used to leave it to yeah, exactly, yeah, leave it to you two to sort through the wreckage after I've pressed save and sent it over to you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no, it's an amazing thing. It really is, and just the quality of each individual instrument, and just the level of attention to detail when you look at, I'm just looking at this now, before we even get to, like, so you've got the operator here, and then again, just like the level of processing that goes on before it even leaves the track is absolutely phenomenal. It really, really is. And it goes across the whole gamut. Go on, Dave, sorry.
I was just going to say, that, even if you just get rid of that MIDI and play, if you were to just sit there and play at a keyboard with that processing and just sit there and tweak the effects as you're playing, you're going to get something absolutely stunning that it's just going to be very, very useful. It's going to be, even if you're just jamming and you're printing to audio and then you're going to edit it later, or however you're going to do it, being able to play into those kind of effects is powerful, man. It's really powerful, and it's very inspiring as well. You know what it's like. It's like some sounds are great out the box, aren't they? But a lot of them, if you want them to be unique, which is, I think, is how you're going to really stand out in today's market. Is if you find your sound, this is
it's like that. It's like been working with Sasha on and off for quite a few years, and one of the main parts of kind of my role that's become later on from being involved much more with the writing side, like Dave and Dennis are right now, is I've been definitely a lot of the sound aspect of it, and when I'm creating sounds and ideas, they have to be fun to play, they have to be responsive, they have to be expressive. A lot of velocity to filter and things like that, and aftertouch and stuff. A lot of that's built into a lot of these sounds. So as soon as you touch them, they're really inspiring, and straight away you go, God, I've got an idea already. And that's kind of what we've tried to do with every single part of what we do with these environments. You've got to instantly feel a vibe, because sometimes it's the sound that pulls out the riff. And not the other way around. You know what I mean? That was what it used to be like with John and I when we were doing Evolution. John was great at coming up with really good hooks, like flipping Air Force and stuff like that, and Andy Ling's stuff. I'd come up with a great sound and an idea, and John would just get up and go, how's that? And we've got the track, and it came from an initial good sound to start with, so.
That's, the key, the clue really with these things is in the name. We want the users to feel like they're in a studio and they've got all the tools that you would find in a studio at your disposal, right? So you've got the right reverb, the right delays, and it's just having all of those things instantly at your fingertips, rather than going, oh, I need a delay. What type of delay shall I put on it? And then flicking through and think. You can play into it. You can always change the delay, or you can change the, if it's 8ths or 16ths or whatever, however you want it, But being able to kind of initially just sit down and go, bam, and go, whoa, that's, and if people if one person comes away thinking, wow, that was amazing, then we've done our job, really.
No, absolutely. And the thing is, one of the most powerful things you could actually do with a session like this is to hit Command A and just hit backspace and then see what you come up with.
Yeah, exactly.
So
we did one thing that we've been doing quite a lot because of some of these new products we've been working on, is taking the MIDI out of these things, out of the environments, and then dropping them on this new thing that we've been working on and seeing what happens. And it's incredible when you take a drum pattern and you put it into this thing and see what it spits out, and you're just like, whoa, So yeah, they're very powerful things.
Yeah, very much so. And then obviously we've just looked at this in the context of, say, for example, like a 4-minute kind of demo track that you've laid out for us here, that obviously gives you different parts, right? Gives you an intro, it gives you a breakdown. My favorite section is the one we've highlighted, which is called Wallop, which is how could you not love the wallop
That's
section. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I feel like we recycled more silly words that meant good.
Yeah.
Like mega was another one I think
Yeah.
that got resurrected.
Yeah,
Sausage comes up a lot.
Yeah.
The mega section.
Yeah, Dave likes sausage as well. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, hang on a second.
Hang on. We don't, swiftly moving on. We're on a public live stream, Barry. Don't be doing that. Come on.
Versions my way.
Dear Lord, we'll be getting tricked off YouTube before you know it. But actually looking at the session view as well, it's a lovely thing of actually like what's going on in the session view is actually matching what's going on here. And that's always been something I've really been fascinated by, and how, you know, by and large, I've taught how to get really vibey arrangements, especially if you've got something like a push, right? Is being able to actually lay it out, you know, scene by scene in the session view, and then effectively just do a live jam in for, you know, however long it is. So this also sets up for the other side of it, where you can just go crazy, right?
Well, that was the whole aspect, you know. It's about jamming ideas, and you know what it's like when you're doing something in, say, Logic or Cubase or anything else. You have to keep stopping and going back and listen to the section again. And if you get your which are your independent parts of the track, so your verse, your chorus, your middle eight, and then being able to just jam it and see what comes out after that 5-minute pass, you know, it's so easy to come up with another variation while you're listening to it, you know. So it's just like DJing. It's that kind of, you know, where should I put the drop? Oh yeah, we're at 3.5 minutes. Yeah, it's got to come in here somewhere. And you'll end.
Is he frozen again?
And for your arrangement with just a couple of tweaks, and you've got it ready, you know. So,
well, I think one of the, you know, it's an overlooked section, isn't it? Building scenes in Ableton, and then just kind of playing it and seeing what comes out, because you know, the temptation is when you're moving blocks around, it's like, oh, it's got to be 16, and then it's a this, and then it's that, and whereas, you know, even if you take the kind of the quantize off the clip launch, so it can launch whenever, you know, and you're just playing stuff, you come up with some really, really kind of interesting arrangements for things very, very easily.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
And we also did a couple of examples as well. You know, we did that on each environment when we were doing the demos for the walkthrough videos. So, well, here's another example of a different idea using the same environment, which at the bottom there. So just to show people that, you know, how versatile we can be as well. So.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, again, you can see these sections are all really incredibly well laid out. And again, these things can also be swapped and changed and played around with, and, you know, completely reorganized into, you know, whatever kind of format you want. And like you mentioned before, guys, like, you know, this is obviously, you said, like, one of the more hi-fi, more sort of polished environments. Should we take a look at maybe like the Breakbeat one and then see, you know, see what that's like? And, you know, again, like, what I really loved as well is, like, you know, the instructions that you guys, you know, gave in terms of, like, you know, how to, you know, install stuff, incredibly clear.
Oh, you didn't have any problems with that then?
No, zero, absolutely zero. It was super easy.
Yeah, we had a few issues with that when we were getting started or whatever, but it seems to be fixed now. Because it's weird, because when you were installing stuff with Ableton, if you put it in the library, in the user library directly, for some reason, Ableton was thinking you were trying to install it in another project, and you're not. So that's why we decided, just put it on the desktop, create the folder, and then just copy it in, and then that's it. It's there, you know. So
no, absolutely, yeah. It was super simple, and, you know, you can see as well, you've given like 4 different live sets with things separated in, you know, like your drum rack patterns, mallets group, that whole thing, like really, really well put together. And again, your presets are all there as well, which is great. The actual instrument lists, just
you can audition everything from there as well.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant, especially when you look at the clip, right? Click to preview. There you go. Yeah, actually, really, the bass was fantastic as well, actually. Because at the beginning,
bass is cool in that one.
Yeah, the first time I heard it, I was like, God, that sounds like a live bass guitar. And then I looked, and then it wasn't, and then it was called could be a live bass guitar.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool. So yeah, I mean, having all of this again, because like this is kind of like my wheelhouse in terms of how I like to work. Is like I normally do like to start with something of a blank template, because I always found like if I just had an auto load with like everything already in, I spent 45 minutes unpicking it. Whereas this allows you to also start from a blank canvas and say, actually, what bits of this do I want, and how can I drop these in unique combinations from the beginning, rather than feeling like I'm having to unpick somebody else's template to go forward, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, the T word is a 4-letter word for us, because we don't really believe that these things are... Because template kind of leads you to believe that if you use this, you will make this, right? So, whereas we prefer to kind of refer to these things as you're working in an environment that's kind of been designed to kind of make a certain type of music, whereas what you do inside that environment is completely up to you. You know, it's kind of the great thing is that, you know, if you do have all 12 of the environments, your sidebar is just full of ideas at your fingertips, right? You can take the breakbeat from one, the bass line from another, you know, and it's embracing the modular side of Ableton, which is so powerful.
No, 100%.
It's greatest asset, really, isn't it? You know.
Oh, 100%. Like, yeah, it's so powerful. It really is. And, you know, I feel like the better part of mastering Ableton is actually mastering that side of it, quite frankly.
Yeah. Well, I always find that, you know, you forget sometimes how powerful that side of it is. You know, just, you know, I've got a huge sample library that I'm constantly just dipping into and dropping stuff in. And sometimes you're not even paying attention to the tempo or the pitch or, you know, whatever it is, because just taking it, putting it in, and then you can manipulate it into whatever you want, right? You can make vocals into hi-hats, and, you know, it's crazy what you can do with this thing.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And this is another one of the environments that I absolutely loved as well. You know, again, just in terms of like, you know, where the organic house is a little bit more polished, I love this one because it's just bonkers. Yeah, and there's a lot to it. I mean, especially in terms of like the drums in particular, because, you know, breakbeat, I think, is an amazing genre, but it's actually quite a tricky one to get the drums right, I find.
It's a bit taboo, isn't it, really?
In what way, Barry?
Well, I mean,
He'll be back.
Things up by complex grooves, you know, and it can be challenging for some people of how do you actually get there. But when you see kind of taking little snippets of certain loops for just not even a full beat, it's just a tiny little fills kind of thing. You know, it was kind of like we used to work back in the day. I mean, when we started using Recycle, when that first kind of surfaced years and years ago, we'd recycle like 10 grooves, and then you'd take the kick out of one, you'd take a snare out of the other, hi-hats out of another one, and all this cut and paste would eventually build up this kind of loop, you know, than using drum machines, which was kind of the way a lot of people used to approach that, especially with kind of drum and bass. You know, it was really clever stuff, and Recycle is what kind of opened the window to that kind of way of working.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, you weren't lying when you said these ones are a bit more gnarly.
Yeah.
So sleepy Sunday afternoons with Lee Burridge, this is not.
No,
it's definitely not that.
No,
but what's the tempo on this one? Yeah, that's the fastest thing I think I've done in about 20 years. And then, of course, we did the drum bass one, and that not been there in a long time. But it was great fun, you know.
Did you have to have a lie down afterwards, Barry? Was it a bit pacey for you nowadays?
Oh, a couple of Valium, mate.
Oh, you can always tell it's a good night when the Valium's been out afterwards. But yeah, I mean, yeah, just again, the level of programming there, you can just see it. And then, like you were saying before, Barry, like, you know, just being able to, you know, appreciate this is exactly like the chops. And, you know, again, you've got live loop chopped here, which was one of my more, you know, favourite part of this. Just hearing that just in isolation and then being able to appreciate what it's doing in terms of the whole.
I'm not sure we can hear that.
Yeah, I can't hear that at the moment, Paul.
Hang on a minute. Let's see. Hang on a minute. Might just need to give you a slightly different link because I've changed sessions, you see.
Okay.
Normally it carries over, but it's decided to be a bit of an idiot today. Hang on a minute. There we go.
It's nearly Christmas, mate.
Yeah, I think audio movers are about to become audio stop for Christmas.
Go.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Get that out. You know, and again, just hearing that live loop there.
We know the track anyway, so
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing just actually, like, you know, turning off the processing on the main drum, you know, on the main. Here we go. And then putting that processing back on. It's absolutely fantastic, you know. Just you can hear the massive amount of contribution that the likes of the multi-band compression and the saturators making in that situation.
Well, it's a good way of learning, you know, how to kind of really, without breaking the bank, how you can get a really good sound out of Ableton, right? So you're, you know,
I love the multi-band compressor. I think it's a proper secret weapon in Ableton.
And you know, and it's all achievable. You know, everything that you need is in Ableton. It's just, you know, it's just how you use it. And the great thing one of the great things about these environments is that they're broken down in a way that you can actually go, okay, and you turn it on and off and you hear what it does. You know, you turn the saturation off and you hear the effect that it's having. Turn the multi-band compressor off and you can hear what, you know, where it's pushing. And yeah, that's as much as giving people the access to the sounds, that's also, you know, something that was very important to us, was that you could gain knowledge from these things, right?
Yeah.
We always, Baz and I, one of the things that we talked about a lot is that, you know, that initial thing of where, when you start off making any type of music, I guess, you're constantly in this battle with yourself where you're saying, well, why doesn't my music sound like the records I like? Or, you know, that, and then you find out that it's got this on it and it's got that on it and they're using this, and then you're kind of like, before you know it, you're not making music, you're collecting plugins, and you're just and we were like, that's, you know, some of the best records ever made have been made on some of the shittest equipment known to man. Right? Yeah. And there's still, some of these records still sound like they arrived on a UFO from the future, even now. And you know, and giving people, you know, letting them know that you know, it's about your idea, and having just taking what you've got and making the most of it is the best way to go. Not chase plugins or anything like that.
And the answer's not going to lie in another set of presets that you've downloaded from, you know, the dark web or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Or that kind of thing, or another sample pack, or I just need this new thing. You know, it's like everybody gets locked into that process every now and then. You know what I mean?
Mate,
it's an understandable thing, but.
I've got a studio full of synths and I can't help myself. Euro crack was the worst one. Yeah,
oh dear.
I managed to stave off that illness. Yeah, I basically got way beyond it really needed to be, and then said I'm going to keep all the ones I want in a small case,
Yeah.
and everything else is going to go because I don't use them anyway. It's just a bunch of flashing lights in the studio. So,
Honestly, guys,
I couldn't be Richard Devine.
No.
I had to keep it calm down.
No. Honestly, God, Barry, I'll be honest with you. I learnt my lesson through seeing Delete with Euro Rack in a big way. Like,
Oh, that rack in LA.
Yeah, and remember, I had to collect that one from New York. And here's me on the plane to LA thinking I'm going to get stopped because I'm going to be,
carrying a bomb.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and with a last name like Nolan, it's like, are you in the IRA? That kind of thing.
I had to use that rack in the live show.
I know. And I don't know how you're still here to tell the tale, Dave.
Mate, there was a couple of moments where mysteriously dials moved in between one like I think we did our rehearsal before the first show at the Barbican, and you're done. You leave the gear and you go have a cigarette or some water or something. And I came back thinking, oh, my kit would be exactly the way it was when I left it. We started the first track, and the dials weren't in the right place, and I was like listening to it, going, "This isn't right." And then you realize very quickly that I can't actually just go real now in the middle of an ambient intro or something. So you're kind of like you're nursing it. It's just I mean, like those people who do live modular shows are just
they amaze me.
It really is amazing.
That.
Yeah,
when you see it, but it's a discipline, right? It's.
No, totally.
I'm not sure if I've got that in me.
And it's a fine
they've all got a samurai sword in the luggage, and if anyone touches it, they lose their fingers.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. But you're only literally like one breath in the wrong direction away from it sounding like a car alarm again, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? That is the problem with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and the problem is, I'll tell you how bad I am with it. I'm that bad with VCV rack. Never mind, anything else. Like, that's enough for me.
Yeah.
The VCV
that is awesome, though.
Yeah, phenomenal. Absolutely amazing. Like, it really, it scratches that itch. But to be honest,
you will lose decades off your life doing that, though. It's worse than smoking.
Oh, mate.
It really is.
Yeah, probably more expensive as well, Baz. Do you know what I mean? But yeah.
You'll learn a lot, but you'll
Yeah, you'll learn a lot of absolutely useless information that won't help you in any other way of life at all. Oh God, no, funny. Yeah, so as I say, Dave, braver man than I. Like, subjecting yourself to that live on stage, like.
Oh mate.
Absolutely brilliant.
I'll be having nightmares about that tonight.
Oh mate, and the funny thing is, like, because obviously I was there the first night at the Barbican, and I had like a very weird experience that night. It was like, I'm listening to music that I've had a hand in making, but I'm now an audience member and I'm having this music played back to me by a live band. This is very strange. But that was also, I love that first night at the Barbican, because that was the first time we'd all been together.
To be honest, that was the best night. Yeah, that was the best night, and the atmosphere. We all knew it was going to be something special, but we never expected it to be the way it was. And of course, when we dropped Expander, that Dave Dennis and Sasha and Charlie kind of reworked, nobody had an inkling what it was. And then Dave is the one that gives the hint away when the little Luke comes in the break. And as soon as he put it in, every single person in that building, oh, here we go. And it was just epic. It was absolutely epic. And it's funny, the 2 nights we did at the Barbican, we were chatting to the guy who kind of runs it all. And he was very posh. And he said, do you know we actually ran out of alcohol?
Yeah. I think we hold the record for the loudest gig.
So they're quite a rowdy bunch.
Amount of alcohol consumed at the Barbican since it opened.
Yeah.
That was mental. I just remember them like
no wonder it went off.
I just remember standing there, like, and I had the seat. I ended up going with Darren Emerson. Like, Darren came down with me,
and I remember seeing Darren there.
Yeah, and we were just looking around, and there was like just people just dancing on seats, and like these like posh attendants going, "Could you awfully mind like not dancing on the seat?" I was like, "Fuck off!" just absolute carnage, no matter which way you looked. It was absolutely fantastic. It really, really was. Like, and you know, it's just it's funny, you know, again, because there's all that connective tissue, isn't there, in terms of, like, you know, we're talking about this type of stuff and where this whole idea had its roots, and then it obviously resulted in the live shows and a number of different things. Like, so when you think back to that time, like, it actually, in a way, it was an incredibly special time because of, you know, what was produced through that time period, you know. Incredibly grateful for it. But
we definitely smashed it.
Oh yeah, I mean, as a crew, like I said, like my favourite part of it, apart from the actual gig, is that it was the first time that all of us had been in the same room together at the same time. And
after we did the album, of course, because you know, we worked on that thing remotely, you know, and none of us were ever in the same place.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was kind of weird.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just really glad that we got one opportunity to get the entire squad together. You know what I mean? Which shows you again with, like, modern technology, with, like, you know, God, because that album was written, you know, on Dropbox and Skype calls, basically, and you know,
and Ableton,
Ableton, and an incredibly, like, hardcore Trello board, which I think I'm still psychologically trying to recover from. Do you know what I mean? But,
Fight Club rules.
Mate, yeah. Honestly, who's not put the Trello board in?
Dave was a bit of a moderator for that. And
we all needed moderating.
Not by choice.
No.
Not by choice.
Yeah, we all needed moderating, and then we all needed medicating afterwards. But there you go.
When we were doing the second Evolver album, you know, Duncan and Sasha, God bless them, would go to Schlummers, which was the local wine shop.
Yeah.
And we had a massive bucket that was full of corks, and there must have been about 900 in this bucket by the time we finished the album.
Jesus.
And they were buying nice bottles of wine in New York, which are not cheap. So that's where all our funds went.
I mean, to be fair, like, we actually did knock it out fairly quickly, didn't we? We're really, like, seeing the
it was insane. He's never done anything that fast, ever.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is that Dennis, Sasha, and myself, we spent so
you guys put him into overdrive.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time before we actually hit the button on that. I think there was about maybe 3 or 4 months where we were just writing the demos to it, and then once we all kind of started working on it, I mean, it was just, that's the beauty, though, isn't it? You've got people in different time zones. You're effectively working 24 hours a day.
Yeah. So I guess you could double the time almost, couldn't you? Really, when you think about it.
No, amazing.
So.
Yeah, and from my perspective, it was like, you know, if we had them on, like, you know, office hours, like, you know, 10 till 6 every day, Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant for me because I got, like, the evenings and the weekends in the studio to myself, like, you know what I mean? And in an amazing, like, I'm still part of the furniture at the Village. Like, I still go there every time I'm in LA, and I go and have lunch with the guys and stuff, like, so, you know, just wild times, like, really, really, really amazing space. Like, if you guys haven't been, I would recommend going for a tour. Like, it's
I went a long time ago, like, years ago, to see Tom in there one time, John KXL. And Andy Page, of course. So it's a great facility, really great facility.
Yeah, it really, really is. I mean, it's got so much history, and the vibe just hits you as soon as you walk through the door. You know, it's like you couldn't not come up with some great piece of art if you spent enough time in there. Basically, do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's a phenomenal thing. It really is. But yeah, I mean, let's have a little listen to the rest of this.
Sounds in the breakdown, Dave, or was that the house one? I can't remember.
No, the house one has got this does have a crazy sound in it in the breakdown.
Is it?
It's the
this thing,
AMS style shit.
Yeah, it's the AMS thing, and then it's the other different bass line, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite bicep, that sound.
Yeah. It gives, like, a real, like, feeling of, like, you know, Evil 9 or, you know, like, I mean, I'm a massive Uncle fanboy, so the drums instantly took me to a lot of like the, you know, the sort of the heavier Uncle stuff actually.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. And again, it's a similar situation again, isn't it, in terms of, you know, different processing, obviously a lot heavier with the way the drums are processed and everything else, but you've still got that at your disposal. You know, you're looking at like this, you know, AMS style chops here, which we just heard in the breakdown. You know, you've got 2 grain delays there, and that's just completely open for you to, you know, completely close up, put that wherever you want in your library, you know, put that on any sound you want, basically. So, yeah, the interchangeability of the sounds so great.
The Carl, is it the Carl synth? Great Carl synth, yeah. That's a great sound, that is. And also the funk stab as well. It's both great kind of...
Yeah, that sort of classic thing, right?
You could use that on a techno track.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's kind of vocoderish almost, isn't it, as well?
It's got that chorus on it, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the funk stab's great. That's just asking to be added to a classic.
Yeah, I was a big fan of, you know, I loved, you know, I was a big fan of Meet Katie and Rennie Pilgrim and guys like that. You know, they've always done slamming tracks, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of inspiration from kind of those guys as well. So
yeah, and I feel like Breakbeat at the moment
having more modern artists as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I was gonna say, because like there's definitely been an uptick in the last few years of like breaks, hasn't there? You know, like Bicep and, you know, a few others, albeit in a very different style.
Yeah, so, I think there's that. You know, that over mono thing, it kind of falls into that a little bit as well, where they're taking that old kind of drum and bass attitude towards drums, chopping them up and just flipping them on their head, right? So you're making techno tracks out of breakbeats, and, you know, breakbeat tracks out of techno sounds, and it's kind of
it's like a complete reverse engineering, essentially, like.
Yeah,
because it's interesting as well, because, you know, I always think about, because like I've been mates for years with the likes of Futurebound on the drum and bass side, and, you know, the fact that, you know, him and Jamie Matrix used to just like knock out like house records on his lunch hour, and then they'd go to #1 or something daft like that. You know what I mean, like with the Gold Tricks thing. And, you know, a lot of drum and bass producers these days tend to have, like, you know, house and techno monikers where, you know, they can flip between
alter egos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. And again, like, that's where these environments are great, because again, this is a 130, you know, you could slow it down, you could speed it up towards something else.
If you slow that down to 90 BPM, I mean, it's like,
there's one in here, the examples at 115, that comes down quite a bit.
Yeah, if you play the example there, Paul, the last
one. That one, 115, yeah.
Sounds like it's about to start rapping.
I'm going to hear something like MC Pitman or someone like that start rapping over the top of it. Absolutely. And again, like, just showing as well with like the newer features in live. Well, it's not so much a new feature, because you've been able to do this for a while, but it's a lot easier to see it now in Live 11, where you can program in different, you know, different BPMs and different tempos, and then
time signatures, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and, you know, obviously you've got a lot to dig into there, obviously, as well, you know, with like the follow actions and stuff like that as well, which has been massively upgraded.
All of that's incredible now. I mean, like you were saying earlier, Paul, I mean, the update, the jump from 10 to 11, it's night and day, isn't it? You know, it's kind of we're actually, I mean, you could actually help us, actually. I mean, have you found that most of your people who use Ableton have switched over to 11?
There's the vast majority of them are. There's still a few stragglers on 10, because I think now, believe it or not, like 11's coming up to have been out for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And
It has now, yeah, it must be.
Yeah, and they've definitely gotten over some sort of initial bugs that they had and stuff like that, because it was very, very sketchy at the beginning.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more solid now.
Yeah.
And yeah, they still, I mean, and you've still got the one or two old school hardcore pirates who are still on 9, believe it or not.
I know a few people on 9.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always one or two.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely made
a
conscious. Yeah, we definitely made a conscious decision to keep it in 10, because when we started this project 2 years ago, like you're saying, 11 was a little flaky. And we thought, it was quite an expensive upgrade as well from 10, but well worth it. So we thought, well, let's stick with 10 for now. And then, we can develop 11 as we kind of progress along and find out how many people who are going to use the products are going to be on 11. So that's something we're quite aware of. And, we will be doing updated versions of all of the environments to 11 with all the extra features, extra snapshot presets. So there's going to be a lot more content within the project, even though what you've already got, there'll be all this extra. So when you work it out, if you've got 8 sounds and 3 returns and a bunch of effects, you're going to have over 100 presets. So it's going to be a lot more comprehensive.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, I think Live 11 just opens up anything like this. I mean, it's the possibilities are just, I mean, they're infinite, right? I mean, if you're, without giving too much away, with one of our new products that we're going to be launching in the new year, really embraces the whole snapshot and how you can link different parts of a chain to a snapshot, and just flicking through the snapshots and changing patterns and things like that is just nuts. It really makes you kind of think, shit, I need to kind of really embrace that when I start working on some new music, because it's, if you, I don't know, I think the more you can get a performance into anything like this, the better. I think your music's just better off, instead of just sitting there kind of, drawing.
Doesn't feel static, does it?
Yeah. So with the snapshots, it really does enable you to kind of flip things on their head, or just go from polar opposites of a sound, across a section, very quickly, whilst maintaining, the workflow as well, right? So.
No, 100%, and anything that you can do to give yourself a bit of a, not so much a competitive advantage, but like a bit of a creative advantage over everyone else. And not to open a can of worms, but it's like 2-3 years down the line, you're not just going to be like not competing, but you're not going to be creating alongside everybody else who's trying to do this. You're going to have AIs that are going to be able to just emulate this type of stuff in no time at all. So like whatever people can do to actually bring more humanity into their music and be able to do it in a way where no AI can emulate what a human can do in that context is going to be really, really important going forward, because we're about to be flooded in the next couple of years with these AIs with some incredibly genetic music.
Here's my angle on that, Paul. If you've not been to Quaddy Park and been hammered, then you can't make music like that. So however much an AI may be able to talk that all of these riffs are great, if you've not experienced the night at Quaddy Park back in the day, or the Hacienda, when it was like a church, it was just ridiculous. They're never going to get the concept of that. So I don't think they can quite pull it off yet. I hope not, anyway.
My cut-off point is Oakenfold Courtyard 98. That's when I came into it. Basically, that pose you've just done, that was me for a year. That was me at 18 years of age for a year. Well, yeah, exactly. Right. It's going to be an interesting future for sure.
Good times though.
Well, yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely.
Slightly.
Yeah, if you can remember them. That Quaddy Park video was doing the rounds again recently. Have you seen it? The one with
the Enjoy one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Who is it that's playing in that? Is it Ralphie?
No, it's
can you imagine that happened back then? We'd all be dead.
Nola.
Is it? Is it?
It's Mike Nolan.
Is that who it is?
That was Mike Nolan.
Right,
playing,
okay.
Because you can't see the DJ. And I spoke to Mike about this, and he was like, "Yeah, basically, I was on the 3rd floor facing the men's toilets, looking at a wall the entire night, because basically that's where the DJ booth was. Because back then nobody gave a shit about the DJ. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No. You almost need to make it a bit like that again. Do you know what I mean? Just to make it easy, make it interesting.
Well, kill the hero worship.
Yeah, a little bit. You know what I mean? Yeah, or I like a lot of the stuff that's happened this year. Like, Sasha's played a couple of gigs this year. Like, I was at the one in Ibiza that he played back in April. And then, obviously, me and Dave, you were at the Cathedral gig in August.
Oh, yeah, that was good, wasn't it?
People were talking about that on Saturday when I was at my friend's daughter's 21st, and they went out as a family. Yeah. So mum, dad, daughter, daughter's boyfriend, boyfriend's mum and dad. So, John Sutton, who did Evolution with me, says, it's really weird, Baz, he was out with the whole clan. Like, what?
Yeah.
They were all out.
I haven't had a very good track record with Manchester venues recently. I got COVID at that gig.
Yeah, a load of people did, yeah.
Although, to be fair, because I got flu last week, having been in Joshua Brooks to see Christoph. So I'm like, maybe it was Joshua Brooks that's been infecting me rather than the Cathedral. So it's like staying well away from Joshua Brooks anytime soon. Like, because every time I go there, I get infected with something. But there you go. But yeah, the concept of actually like having the booth in the middle of the club, I think, is something that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
And because that almost like removes a backstage area, so you've got less angers on. Yeah. You know what I mean? That kind of thing, and it becomes.
What you mean, us lot?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know what I mean? It forces us old farts to actually dance.
Yeah.
Cool. It's an interesting time.
Comment.
Yeah. Probably wise, Dave. I'm probably just me and Baz are just ending our careers.
I think the worst example I think I've seen of it was probably at Mansion in maybe 2006, maybe at Miami.
Right.
And the VIP was on the dance floor, and Sasha and John were playing, of course. And of course, why would you have people on the dance floor sat on couches getting bottle service? It's a dance floor, So yeah, I'm kind of with you, Paul. Yeah, maybe sticking it in the middle and the sheep have to dance around the pen. I think that might work. Yeah.
Yeah, he meant that in the nicest possible way, by the way. Just
of course, yeah.
Right, so I've just loaded up the final one, which is the progressive house one. So we'll have a little blast of that, shall we?
Yeah, man.
And I tell you what, we'll go straight for the wallop. Why not? Immediately drawn to this bass. Nice wavetable, which has actually become one of my favourite synths.
It's great.
It's a monster synth.
It really, really is. It really is. Like, just doing even like what you would say basic stuff like this with it, like just a really good sound and round pluck. You can do that like fairly easily, but some of the complexity of some of the sound that you can get out of it with the various wavetables, and now being able to just drag clips in and it instantly creating a wavetable out of it is absolutely insane.
we've done a bit of that.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine.
Yeah,
resampling itself and kind of just going through loops of resampling.
Well, it's funny. In the house environment we've done, there's a really typical kind of Express 2 sort of bonkers, really mad sound in the middle, for that Scouse House moment kind of thing. And it's basically a sound that you can do on the ARC 2600. So we called it ARC 2D2. And it's basically two LFOs pitching two VCOs at the same time, but in opposite directions. And you get all this weird kind of ring mod kind of ripping sort of sound. And, when I basically created that with Wavetable, and it's absolutely bonkers sound. Yeah. It's killer. So, yeah, there's a lot of aspects of what it could do that. And on that one as well, we're using two external LFOs, as well as the LFOs that are built within the Wavetable as well. So kind of extending its own capabilities as well. Not on this one. This is in the house one. I'll send it to you anyway so you can take a look at it, but it's a bonkers noise, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah.
one of the things that I really love about all this stuff now in Live 11 as well is that you've got the MPE as well, you know, the MIDI polyphonic expression. And, you know, admittedly, I feel like I've made a bit of a mistake. I actually had, you know, one of those little mini Rolly C boards that allowed you to have full access of that. Like, I actually knocked one on, but I think what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably just going to pull the trigger once I'm settled, once I've relocated. I'm going to buy a full length one because I absolutely love those things. And how it now interfaces, not just with, like, you know, stuff within Ableton, like on the MPE side of things, it's also like the third party plugins that are natively supporting it now. Things like, you know, Arturia Pigments, which is one of my favorite synths.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the Arturia stuff just natively links to it, and just having that, like you were saying before, Barry, about, you know, the aftertouch and the fact that there's lots of different dimensions to these sounds that you've programmed. Having that at like the tip of your fingers is absolutely brilliant. It really is. And you know, just being able to do things like, you know, pitch bent chords, because each note can kind of transmit that signal. Just, again, a whole other world of possibility. And even if you don't have one of those controllers, the ability to actually program it in a clip in Ableton and get some really wild stuff like pair note pitch bend, for example, is pretty phenomenal. It really is.
Cool.
Yeah, it's mad stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still waiting for MIDI 2. I've been doing this for 30 odd years. MIDI 2's still not quite landed.
Yes,
it's coming. It's coming. It's going to be good.
Yeah. A guy who
I ended up. I mean, my. Go on, Paul.
No, go on, Baz. I was just going to say, one of the guys who I work with he's a Hollywood composer called Jeff Rona, and he's on the committee for MIDI 2.0, and he's like, yeah, it's pretty much there now. So, yeah.
Right. Bring it on.
Indeed, desperately needed.
Well, I've got the Hydra synth, and you know, when that came out, you know, that was kind of the first polyphonic aftertouch thing, and you know, that thing's an absolute beast of a synth, and you know, the whole expressiveness of it, I think it kind of set the benchmark, you know, for what was going to come next, and of course, Ableton introduced MPE into Ableton, so yeah, it's a whole, like you're saying, it's a new approach to things, isn't it? That's just not been available, you know, before, and I think it really extends the capabilities of what you can do with stuff.
Very much so. I mean,
it's fantastic.
Obviously, there's been OSC for years, but you know, OSC is so difficult to kind of get your head around, and you know, it's not necessarily the most intuitive of control elements. You know what I mean? Because I have to work with OSC stuff all the time when we're controlling immersive audio systems like the D&B Soundscape system. And it's just like, it's a whole other minefield, mate. You know what I mean? Like, it really is. But
it was funny because that was always part of Reactor, wasn't it? And you know, Reactor was always it's really great and it's super powerful, but it's not as efficient as it could be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, it's. You know, and they
the native instruments. Right?
No, I'm not going to start asking anyone again. I'll shut up.
Might be time to start wrapping this up. We're going round in circles now.
All right.
Right, shall we do some questions before we...
let's do some questions.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah, exactly. So, let's have a little look. I mean, this one's a bit more of a bit of a comment. Dave Cudden, one of our NYT AAA members, so there's someone who's never used Ableton for producing before. It seems like the environment here might help me make the transition from Logic, which is cool.
Right.
Although I really wanted to try Ableton for some time, I just couldn't bring myself to learn another DAW from scratch. But I feel like the environment might provide an extra bit of confidence for first-time Ableton users.
Absolutely, man. I mean, you know, the thing is that not only are you you're learning on the go, right? So you're writing, but you're learning and you're seeing it right in front of you instead of kind of having just this kind of thing where you're going, God, how do I do that? Where's that? You know,
where do I start? You know,
where do I start? Right. So yeah, absolutely, Dave. If you're thinking about at least trying it out, then you know, use your NYT code and get getting environments.
Well, fully enough, you've just mentioned that, Dave, because NYT AAA members do get a nice discount on the environments. Because Dave was asking about whether you do discounts for bundles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But hey, there's a code there that can be used to buy as many of these lovely environments as you need to. And Dave had another question actually about the environments. Does it work with 11 Suite, or is standard good enough?
Suite.
Right.
It's going to be Suite.
Because it uses Max for Live,
sure,
and it uses all of the instruments, so every instrument from electric, of course, analog, operator, wavetable, all of that's part of Suite. And you can buy them separately with the standard, but you can't introduce Max for Live.
Right.
And one of the best aspects of what we're doing is giving people custom things that will really extend the capabilities of stuff. But other things you also get with the library, but it will only actually work with Suite, unfortunately.
I think as well, it's important to mention that, if you're, I mean, obviously, if you use Logic, then it is a big step to ask somebody to purchase a live Suite. But I think if you really want to get the best out of Ableton, Suite is it's so incredible. I mean, it's like before when I first, I think my first Ableton was like 2 or something, and I only had the standard one. And then once I started working with Sasha and Barry and everybody, and obviously we had a deal with Ableton where they would kind of look after us. As soon as I got that first Suite, it was just incredible. What you get for your money, and what's available to you as a Suite user on the site it's just mind blowing. It really is.
It's a massive library as well.
It's just
a huge library of content.
You save yourself thousands of pounds, literally thousands of pounds.
And you look at what they're doing now. I love the fact that they've kind of partly adopted a little bit of what Apple do with Logic, where in a point update, you're now getting new content. Plugins getting reskinned. They're adding a little instrument here or there. They're providing that little bit more value. And then, again, like you said, Dave, jumping from 10 to 11 was a bit of a night and day job where...
Yeah, I mean, it really is.
Integrating the likes of Spitfire, and you get some exclusive Spitfire instruments, and some of it's incredibly high quality. I'll be honest, I'll level with you. I actually prefer the sounds of their included Roland drum machine kits to actually some of the Era stuff, which is supposedly hardware, but it's a different thing.
I mean, obviously we've probably drank the Kool-Aid with Ableton, but I really do think that they look after their users incredibly well. If you buy in, what you have at your disposal is just it's top drawer. Whereas I think some of the other companies, not mentioning any names at all, are
I'm not saying anything.
Yeah, are maybe don't so much, but I do. But I think Ableton, because they just, having spoken to a few people at Ableton about 36 dB, they're just so into seeing what people do with their product. It's just they almost feel embarrassed asking people to kind of buy new things, which is why they look after people so much, because they think, well, it is a lot of money. We've got to make sure that every single person that uses it feels like they're getting value for money, which is, you can't argue with that, I don't think.
No, not at all. And a good thing to note at the minute is that it's 20% off Suite at the moment as well. So, another little incentive to make the jump if people are watching and they haven't before. Yeah. Abraham Clark asking, is across all of the environments, how much wavetable is in there? Because obviously that's our first little peek of it within this progressive house thing. But...
I mean, it's in quite a few of them, yeah. It's quite a few, yeah.
I think
I'd say analog's probably the most heavily used synth, I would have said. But yeah, I mean, both operator and wavetable are quite heavily used.
The thing is that because we wanted to make sure that the range of environments is quite broad, right? So you're having to figure out ways of making sounds that fit these particular genres of music, where you know, you don't have the hardware or you don't have this. So, and you know, Ableton has everything you need. So if you need guitars, you know, there's one thing that we've done which has got kind of a manipulated guitar in it. There's, you know, the tension synth in Ableton is amazing for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've tried to use a broad selection of things so that you understand that Ableton does have everything you need inside of it. It's and I think anyway, anybody who uses a DAW for a certain amount of time, you kind of get into a habit of working with certain synths, right? Because you get to know them and you know that you can get certain things out of it. Whereas, you know, that's not always the case. I know Logic has a very impressive array of kind of synths that they give you, but I think Ableton is just it picks it for me a little bit.
No, 100%. It's definitely improved over the years because, you know, for the longest time it was always like Logic was like what you got the most bang for the buck for, but I definitely think now that's definitely on Live Suite in terms of just, you know, the level and the quality of the instruments, and also, like I mentioned before, you know, the level of the third party partners that they bring into the table now as well is deeply impressive for sure. So yeah, I mean, this is exciting times, guys, because, you know, obviously, you know, we've been through a few of these environments and just seeing how deeply impressive they are and how deeply sort of tactile and how, you know, accessible these things are. So just to round off, give us a shout about, you know, where these can be found, when can these be bought, are they out already, like what's the onward forward plan after you guys have had a good break for Christmas?
Well, okay, so if you go over to 36db.live, on the environment page you can find all 12 environments, and there's everything from kind of over mono stuff to drum and bass to like Ben Clock, Sven Vath kind of stuff, or there's the progressive stuff, there's houseier stuff. There's a good selection. We're going to be launching this new product range just after Christmas, which is it's going to be called Elements, which and we're very excited about it because of some of the things that we're going to give to people is it's very, very useful stuff, you know, good value for money as well. And then we've got a couple of other big things happening, but we'll talk about those in the new year. We'll come back, Paul, and when we announce that, and we'll get
used to it, because I think you're going to become part of the furniture around here, quite frankly, to be fair.
More than happy to do that. I mean, again, if anybody wants to check anything out, you know, we're just hit us up on Instagram, we're on there, or you know, you can hit Baz and I are, you know, we reply to any emails that come in. So if anybody has any questions or anything, feel free to give us a shout, man. We're always there. And if they can't get hold of us, Paul, they can ask you.
Well, exactly, yeah. So I'm the next one in the trench.
Yeah.
Oh, look, we're back in the trenches like we were 7 years ago. It's like nothing's changed. Yeah, fantastic, guys. Like, and you know, to be honest, it's been amazing to see the new project, see all of that. Like, but you know,
mate, thanks for having us.
But mainly, it's just been great to hang around with you for a couple of hours and catch up as well.
Cool, yeah. Well, the discount for your guys, you know, which you could distribute to your members and that, Paul, is active basically now until the end of the year. So get over there and take a look around and try some of the stuff out.
Perfect.
Also, it's just worth mentioning as well that if you if you sign up to the membership, you do get a discount as well. So you can't use them in conjunction with each other, but you know, it's just worth mentioning that.
Yeah, definitely.
You want to keep, because the thing is, we do want to, you know, we want to hear from people how their their experience of using the environments, what they think, you know, whether they think there's anything we could do better, or you know, we're up for that. So please, you know, if you do decide to purchase anything, please let us know.
No, absolutely, brilliant stuff.
Cool.
Brilliant stuff. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's edition. And amazing. Thanks once again to Dave and Barry for taking the time to go through this stuff. And I'll see the members later on this week, and I'll see the rest of you soon. Thanks very much.
Have a good Christmas, guys.